Have you ever seen a situation flip in an instant? Ever witnessed someone in authority make a snap judgment, only to find out they were completely wrong? Imagine this. An officer, full of confidence and assumptions, pulls over a driver he believes is breaking the law. He's certain he knows what's going on. But here's the twist. This isn't just any driver. What if that person he's targeting has more authority than he could ever imagine? What if she's someone he never expected to encounter? Today, we're diving into one such real-life encounter, a situation that went from routine to shocking in a matter of seconds. This story isn't just about one officer and one driver. It's about the dangers of judgment, the assumptions we all make, and how those assumptions can lead to consequences we never see coming. In this video, we'll break down what happened, step by step, and reveal the moment when everything changed. We'll explore the impact of stereotypes and the hidden details that make this story even more surprising. Stick with us as we uncover this surprising turn of events, because by the end, you might just see why it's so important to challenge our assumptions and think twice before judging someone by their appearance. If you want to know what really went down and how one officer's mistake turned into a lesson on respect and authority, stay tuned. Picture this. It's an ordinary day. The sun is high, and a police officer is out on patrol, scanning for anything out of the ordinary. This isn't just any officer. He's one of those who believes he's got the world figured out. He's been doing this job long enough that he feels he can read people at a glance, who's harmless, who's trouble, who needs a warning, and who deserves a ticket. To him, it's simple. He's the authority. He's in control. Then he spots her. A black woman driving a sleek, well-kept car that he doesn't recognize. She seems confident, too calm, maybe even a bit too composed. Something about her look, maybe the way she's dressed or the car she's driving, just doesn't sit right with him. Instantly, assumptions start filling his mind. She doesn't belong here, he thinks. Probably up to no good. His instincts, he believes, are sharp and trustworthy. They've guided him through years on the job. He's certain he's reading the situation correctly. Without hesitation, he flips on his lights, signaling for her to pull over. The woman glances in her rearview mirror, and for a moment, there's no fear, no panic, just a calm acknowledgement as she eases her car to the side of the road. There's something unusual about her composure, but he doesn't notice. To him, she's just one more citizen who needs to be put in her place. The officer steps out of his car, hand resting near his holster as he approaches her window. He's practiced this 100 times over. This isn't anything new. In his mind, he's already decided what kind of person she is and how this encounter will go. He thinks he has all the power here, the control over the situation. But she isn't reacting the way he expects. No nervous shuffling, no fidgeting hands, just a calm, steady gaze, as if she's waiting to see what he'll do next. That calmness. Normally he might view it as respect, but today it only fuels his assumptions. To him, she's just acting defiant, maybe even arrogant, challenging his authority without a word. It's all building in his mind, a sense of indignation. After all, he's the officer here, the one in charge. He decides to press harder. License and registration, he says, a bit sharper than usual. She hands it over, barely blinking, still wearing that same calm expression. He's starting to feel a little thrown off. Something feels different, but he can't quite place it. She doesn't look like the usual drivers he pulls over, and her car isn't the type he usually sees. But his suspicions are clouding his vision. He can't see her for who she really is. As he inspects her paperwork, he realizes there's no reason to escalate further. Everything's in order, yet he lingers. Part of him feels challenged by her calmness. Why isn't she reacting? He tries to provoke a response, maybe pushing his authority just a bit more than necessary. But she holds steady, her face unreadable, as if waiting for something, almost like she knows something he doesn't. Now he's growing frustrated. Here he is, the one with the badge, the one who makes the calls, and she's acting like she's the one in control. He can feel his patience wearing thin, even as he tries to appear professional. But there's an itch in his mind, a feeling he can't shake, something about her that he hasn't figured out yet. "Where are you headed?" he asks, his tone taking on a colder edge. Her response is simple, polite, but it only fuels his irritation. Why isn't she nervous? Why isn't she trying to prove her innocence or justify herself? He can't understand it, and in his confusion, his assumptions tighten their grip. What he doesn't know is that every word he says, every gesture he makes, she's watching carefully, observing. She's already sized him up, understood his approach. There's a subtle power shift happening, one he's entirely unaware of. And yet, he remains blind to it, lost in his own assumptions. To him, she's still just another person he can control. Another civilian who has to answer to him, the officer, the one with the badge and authority. He feels like he has her figured out, but he's so wrong, and he has no idea just how big of a mistake he's making. As the officer stands by her window, a growing tension fills the air. He's used to seeing people squirm, make excuses, or even argue, but she sits there, calm and composed. This only stirs his irritation. To him, her calmness feels like a challenge, a refusal to acknowledge his authority. And in his mind, this isn't just a simple traffic stop anymore. He's determined to teach her a lesson. With his authority on full display, he begins to question her. The questions come rapid fire, almost as if he's hoping one of them will trip her up. "Where were you before this?" he asks. "Where are you headed now? Is this your vehicle?" His tone is sharp, impatient, but she answers each question calmly, her voice steady, showing no sign of nervousness. Every polite response seems to irritate him more, as if he's looking for a reason to take this further, to assert his power in a way that she'll feel. And all the while, she's just watching him with that same steady gaze. She doesn't flinch or falter. It's as if she's quietly waiting for him to finish, knowing that this moment won't end the way he thinks. This only fuels his frustration. He begins to dig deeper, looking for any sign of guilt. "Why are you so calm?" he finally snaps, hoping to rattle her. But her expression doesn't change. She just waits, composed, and maybe even slightly amused. That calm demeanor unsettles him. His grip tightens, his questions become harsher, and he raises his voice. To him, it's a way of establishing control, asserting dominance. But she doesn't react. She isn't intimidated. In fact, it's almost as if she's controlling the situation by doing nothing at all. This silent, unspoken battle of wills is building, with each passing second thickening the tension in the air. Now he decides to push it further. He orders her out of the car. He expects to see some reaction, maybe a flash of fear or at least hesitation. But she complies, moving with the same calmness, not missing a beat. It throws him off balance. What kind of person reacts like this? His assumptions, once so strong, are now starting to shake, yet he doesn't back down. With her standing in front of him, he tries to use his size, his badge, his authority to his advantage. He questions her again, pushing, prodding, hoping to find a weak spot. But she stands firm, looking directly at him, and in that moment, it's as if she's the one in control, not him. She seems almost unbothered. He senses it too, but he's too deep in his own ego to step back. The officer stands there, still in control, or so he thinks. He believes he's about to break through her calm exterior, make her acknowledge his authority. But as he pushes on with his questions, something starts to shift. He notices a small, almost imperceptible change in her expression. Just a hint of amusement, a subtle smile she's been holding back. It's as if she knows something he doesn't. And it's that tiny smile, that calm, unwavering look that finally unsettles him in a way he can't explain. Is there something funny here? He snaps, his voice harder, trying to reassert his dominance. She meets his gaze steadily, unshaken, and replies with a quiet confidence, "No, officer. Nothing funny at all." Her voice, calm and collected, only adds to his frustration. But it's something more than that now. He feels a strange unease settling over him, a discomfort he can't shake. Suddenly, he's no longer so sure of himself. His grip on the situation, once ironclad, is starting to slip. Then, without breaking eye contact, she reaches calmly into her pocket and produces an ID badge. At first, he doesn't look closely, assuming it's just her driver's license. But when he does, the world seems to slow down. There, in his hand, is a police ID. Not just any ID either. This badge belongs to someone with rank, someone who has authority, and not just any authority. She's a captain. It's a punch to the gut. He can feel his face go cold as he reads the words. Captain. The word hangs in his mind, heavy, almost mocking him. The calm woman in front of him, the one he thought he could intimidate, is far above him in the chain of command. She's not just another civilian. She's one of the highest-ranking officers in the department, someone with the power and respect he's only dreamed of. His mind races, trying to make sense of it. All his assumptions, his judgments, they collapse in a heartbeat. He looks up at her, realizing he's not just in the presence of another officer, but someone who outranks him by miles. In that moment, he feels smaller than ever. His authority, the power he wielded so confidently moments ago, vanishes. And there she stands, still calm, still composed, watching him with that same steady gaze. Now he's the one who feels exposed. He stammers, searching for words, maybe an apology, an explanation, anything to regain his footing. But nothing comes. Every phrase he tries to form feels empty, powerless. He's suddenly very aware of his actions, of the way he questioned her, the way he tried to push her. Every word, every aggressive question, it all comes rushing back, now wrapped in regret. He wonders if he's gone too far, if his career will be the price of his own arrogance. The captain doesn't say anything right away. She just lets him stand there, trapped in his own embarrassment. It's a moment of silent judgment, a feeling he's never experienced from the other side before. In all his years, he's always been the one in charge, the one who got to decide how these encounters would end. But now, he's at her mercy, and he knows it. Every second she stays silent only makes the weight of his mistake feel heavier. Finally, she speaks, but her voice is calm, almost gentle. "Officer, it seems you've mistaken me for someone else." There's no anger, no accusation, just a simple statement that hits him harder than any reprimand. In that single sentence, she's made it clear how far he's overstepped. And worse, she's left him with no defense, no way to explain himself. She didn't raise her voice or accuse him directly. Instead, her calmness speaks volumes. He stumbles over his words, trying to apologize, his confidence shattered. The authority he once wore so comfortably now feels like a fragile mask. He's stripped of the control he once held so tightly, and in its place, there's only shame and vulnerability. All he can think about is the respect he should have shown, the courtesy he should have extended from the start. He realizes now how blind he was, how his assumptions led him down a path he can't undo. And the captain, still as composed as when he first approached her, watches him struggle with his own discomfort. There's no need for her to say more. Her silence speaks louder than any reprimand. In her calm, he sees a strength he never noticed before, a kind of power that doesn't need a raised voice or a show of authority. She doesn't need to assert herself. Her presence alone is enough to remind him of his place, of the respect he owes. The silence stretches, a powerful reminder of everything he's done wrong. He's left standing there, holding her ID, the weight of his actions bearing down on him. His mind is racing, wondering what will happen next. Will she report him? Will his superiors hear about this? He can almost see the fallout, the reprimand, the judgment of his fellow officers. And as he stands there, he realizes he's powerless, entirely at her mercy. For a moment, time seems to freeze. The officer stands there, gripping the captain's badge. his mind spinning as he stares at the words imprinted on it. Captain. The realization hits him like a tidal wave. This isn't just another person he can talk down to, someone he can intimidate into compliance. This is someone who outranks him, someone with power he didn't even consider possible when he made his quick, careless judgment. As the reality settles in, he feels his pulse quicken. His face flushes hot, then cold. The smug confidence he carried just minutes ago, the arrogance he displayed so freely, now feels like a crushing weight of shame. He glances back at her, hoping to see some sign of anger or even pity. But the captain's face remains calm, unreadable, like she's quietly watching him wrestle with his own conscience. There's no anger in her gaze, only a steady, patient look that makes him feel smaller than ever. In a quiet panic, he searches for something to say. Apologies come to his lips but freeze before they can form. He realizes now how blind he was, how he let his assumptions cloud his judgment. In his head, he replays the encounter, every question he threw at her, every demand he made, all the while thinking he held all the power. And now, here he is, feeling completely exposed, as if every wrong he committed is written across his face. For the first time, he truly understands what it feels like to be on the other side of the authority he's wielded for years. The tables have turned, and now he's standing here, facing the silent judgment of someone with more power, more experience, and more self-control than he could ever imagine. And worst of all, she doesn't need to say anything to make him feel this way. Her silence speaks louder than any reprimand, any scolding. She's giving him space to feel the weight of his own actions. He looks at her again, hoping for some sign that she'll let this slide, that maybe he can walk away without facing consequences. But she says nothing, just watching him with those calm eyes. The silence is unbearable, every second stretching longer than the last. He knows he could try to explain himself, maybe offer some excuse, but deep down, he knows it won't matter. He's crossed a line, and there's no taking it back. His arrogance, his prejudice, it's all out in the open now. The officer tries to compose himself, attempting to regain the composure he had before. He straightens up, clears his throat, and hands her badge back, his hand shaking slightly. He wants to look her in the eye, but he can't bring himself to do it. Instead, he stares down at the ground, a defeated man. His authority, his pride, everything he once held on to feels meaningless now. And still, she says nothing, just watching him with that quiet, unbreakable calm. In this silence, he's forced to confront himself, to see the reality of his actions without any filter. He's always thought of himself as a good cop, someone who protects and serves. But now, he sees the other side, the one he's tried to ignore. He sees how his assumptions, his snap judgments, have made him act out of arrogance, not justice. And he knows, without her needing to say it, that he's let down the badge he wears. Finally, she speaks, her voice gentle yet firm. "Officer, remember that the badge doesn't give us the right to judge someone before we know them. It gives us the duty to protect and respect." Her words sink deep, each one like a weight pressing down on him. There's no anger in her voice, no accusation. She's simply stating a truth, one he can't deny. Her words cut through him, making him realize that respect isn't something to be demanded. It's something to be earned. For years, he's believed he could determine someone's worth at a glance, that he had the right to wield authority however he pleased. But now, standing before her, he sees the error in his thinking. Her calmness, her patience, her quiet strength, they reveal to him just how far he's fallen from the values he once swore to uphold. He nods, unable to meet her gaze, feeling a deep shame settling in his chest. He realizes that this encounter, as humiliating as it feels, is a chance for him to change. A chance to confront the prejudice he carries and to become the kind of officer he thought he was. But he knows he has a long road ahead, and this lesson will stay with him for a lifetime. As he steps back, he feels a profound respect for her, not just because of her rank, but because of her character, her strength, and her restraint. He realizes that true power doesn't come from authority or rank. It comes from the way one carries themselves, from the respect they give to others, regardless of who they are. And he knows, in that moment, that he has much to learn. The captain looks at him one last time, a look that says everything he needs to know. Without a word, she turns and leaves, leaving him standing there, alone with his thoughts. And as he watches her walk away, he feels a deep sense of gratitude mixed with regret, knowing he's been given a second chance to reflect, to grow, and to finally become the officer he should have been all along. Long after she's gone, the officer remains rooted to the spot, unable to shake the weight of what just happened. His mind replays the encounter over and over, the calm way she looked at him, the quiet strength in her words, the unspoken judgment in her gaze. He's never felt so exposed, so utterly vulnerable. For years, he's worn his uniform like a shield, a symbol of authority and control. But today, that uniform feels like an empty shell, stripped of meaning. He feels smaller, humbled, and deeply aware of his own flaws. As he walks back to his patrol car, every step feels heavy. He closes the door and sits behind the wheel, hands gripping the steering wheel tightly as he tries to gather his thoughts. The silence in the car feels deafening, a stark contrast to the tension of the confrontation that just ended. In the past, he would have brushed off any uncomfortable encounter, chalking it up to a civilian's attitude or disrespect. But he knows this is different. This time, he can't escape the nagging guilt gnawing at his mind. He takes a deep breath, leaning his head back, staring up at the ceiling of the car. He's forced to confront a harsh truth about himself, that his assumptions, his quick judgments, have blinded him. He thought he knew people, could read them with just a glance. But now he sees how wrong he's been, how his biases have affected his actions. He realizes that he's been carrying these judgments around, letting them influence the way he treats others, without ever stopping to question if he's truly in the right. The officer remembers the look on her face, that calm and composed expression as he questioned her, the quiet confidence that unnerved him. She didn't need to raise her voice or prove herself. Her mere presence had been enough to reveal the flaws in his approach, the arrogance in his authority. He thought his uniform made him powerful, but today he understands that real power comes from within. It's about respect, integrity, and treating others with dignity. Values he's overlooked in his pursuit of control. With a sinking heart, he thinks about the badge pinned to his chest. It's more than just a symbol of authority. It's a symbol of duty, of serving the public with fairness and respect. But in his rush to assert himself, he forgot the true purpose behind that badge. He sees now how far he's drifted from those principles. He's been so caught up in his role, his authority, that he's neglected the very people he swore to protect. As he stares out of the windshield, he imagines how different things could have been if he'd approached her with respect from the start, if he had taken the time to listen, to understand, instead of assuming he knew her story. The regret feels heavy, almost suffocating, and he knows this isn't just about one encounter. This moment is a wake-up call, a chance for him to examine the biases he's allowed to shape his view of others. He wonders how many other people he's misjudged, how many encounters were tainted by his assumptions. He thinks back on his career, moments where he may have dismissed someone too quickly, where he allowed his authority to override his empathy. And now, each of those moments feels like a missed opportunity, a failure to live up to the true purpose of his badge. The silence in the car gives way to a new resolve, a determination to be better. He understands now that respect isn't something to be demanded. It's something to be given freely, to be earned through action and humility. He knows it won't be easy, changing the way he thinks, the way he approaches his role. But he's willing to try. He realizes that today's encounter wasn't just a moment of embarrassment. It was a turning point, a chance for him to confront the man he's become and make the choice to be better. As he sits there, he decides he'll carry this lesson forward into every future encounter, every choice he makes on the job. The captain's calm, silent strength will stay with him, a reminder of the humility he so desperately needed. He understands now that his role isn't to judge, to assume, but to serve, to protect with respect and integrity. And as he starts the engine, he feels a shift within himself, a sense of purpose he hasn't felt in years. The road ahead won't be easy. He knows he'll have to fight against old habits, challenge his own biases, and learn to see people not through the lens of assumptions, but with a fresh perspective. He realizes that every encounter is a chance to do better, to see people as they are, not as he assumes them to be. And he vows to honor this lesson, to make it the foundation of the officer he wants to become. Days pass, but the memory of that encounter refuses to leave him. It haunts him, lingering in the back of his mind, challenging him to confront what he once believed about himself and his role as an officer. Each time he recalls her calm face, her steady gaze, and the silent way she revealed his mistakes, he feels the shame resurface. That moment didn't just expose his misjudgment. It forced him to question the foundation of his beliefs, his understanding of what it means to truly serve others. He begins to see his role through a new lens, understanding that respect isn't something that can be demanded. It's earned, built on trust, empathy, and fairness. He thinks about all the times he's used his authority to impose his will rather than seeking to understand. And now, each instance feels like a missed opportunity, a failure to embody the duty he swore to uphold. For the first time, he's not just seeing people as faces in passing cars, but as individuals, each with their own stories and struggles, each deserving of respect. The officer finds himself reevaluating his own judgments, the quick assumptions he's made so often, perhaps without even realizing it. He remembers the feeling of power he used to carry, a sense of control over others simply because he wore a badge. But now he knows how dangerous that power can be when wielded without humility. It was a power that blinded him, made him think he knew people he'd never met, led him to judge someone without cause. And he knows now that this arrogance, this sense of superiority, isn't strength, it's a weakness. Each day, he feels the weight of this realization grow. He starts to understand that his uniform, his badge, his authority, these things don't make him better than anyone else. They're tools meant to serve, symbols of trust placed in him by the very people he once saw as beneath him. And with this understanding, he feels a deep responsibility settle over him, one that he's never truly felt before. He begins to see that his job isn't just about enforcing laws. It's about protecting the dignity of every person he encounters. When he's on patrol, he starts noticing things he once ignored. He pays closer attention to the people around him, looking past appearances, searching for the stories hidden behind each face. He begins asking himself questions he never asked before. Who are they? What struggles are they facing? The change is subtle at first, but with each encounter, he feels himself shifting, his approach softening, his patience growing. One day, he pulls over another driver. It's a simple stop, routine, the kind he's done hundreds of times before. But this time, he approaches with a sense of humility, a new awareness of his own biases. He reminds himself that he doesn't know this person's story, that his role isn't to judge but to serve, to treat each individual with respect. And as he speaks to the driver, he feels a strange but welcome sense of peace. There's no urge to assert control, no desire to display authority. Instead, he focuses on listening, understanding, treating the driver as an equal. For the first time in his career, he feels the true weight of his responsibility. It's not about power or control. It's about humanity. The realization is liberating, like shedding a heavy burden he didn't know he was carrying. And as he finishes the interaction, he feels a quiet satisfaction, a sense of fulfillment he's never felt before. He knows he's finally doing the job as it was meant to be done. His colleagues start to notice the change. They see the way he speaks to people, the patience he displays, the respect in his tone. At first, they're puzzled, maybe even a bit skeptical. Some question why he's softening up, but he knows this isn't weakness. It's strength. It takes courage to confront one's own flaws, to recognize the errors of one's ways, and to choose a different path. And he's willing to walk that path, even if it means standing alone. In moments of reflection, he often thinks back to her, the captain who changed his life without raising her voice, without a single reprimand. She's become a kind of silent mentor in his mind, a reminder of the strength that comes from calmness, from respecting others, from knowing who you are without needing to prove it. Her image is always there, a guiding light that keeps him grounded, keeps him on the path of humility. With each passing day, he realizes how much he's learned, how much he's grown. He understands now that respect is not just a courtesy, it's a responsibility. And that authority, real authority, comes not from asserting oneself over others, but from inspiring trust and earning respect. It's a lesson he'll carry with him forever, a reminder of the humility he once lacked and the strength he's gained from finding it. As he goes about his duties, he can feel this transformation shaping every aspect of his life. His encounters are no longer about judgment or control. They're about service, understanding, and empathy. He's learned that the greatest leaders aren't those who shout the loudest or show the most authority, but those who listen, who see others as equals, who lead by example. And though he knows he'll still face challenges, still encounter moments that will test his resolve, he's ready. He's armed with a new perspective, a sense of purpose grounded in respect and humility. He understands now that he doesn't have to judge to do his job well. He just has to be present, to listen, and to approach every person with an open heart and an open mind. In the quiet moments, he often thinks back to that fateful encounter, the moment that changed everything. He sees her calm, unyielding gaze, her silent strength, and he knows that he owes her more than he could ever repay. She taught him, without a single word, what it truly means to serve with honor. And he'll carry that lesson with him for the rest of his life, a beacon of respect and humility guiding him forward.